Up to this point, we've been pretty lucky. We haven't had a significant character die yet. But moving forward, our favorite characters have to face off against the Night King and also Queen Cersei. And it's no doubt that we're going to lose a lot of people along the way. So I wanted to make this video to go through every single character and who I think is going to die and why. And firstly, I want to start off with Brienne. And I think after seeing Brienne get knighted, it's going to be very hard seeing her go. The first time we saw Brienne was in a tournament. All she ever wanted to do was to be a knight. And she wanted to serve somebody well and honorably. And in this tournament, as Renly watched, she defeated Sir Loras. And she didn't want a reward, she didn't want money. She wanted to be his Kingsguard. It really showed us who she truly was. She was a character who felt like she didn't fit in. All she ever wanted to be was a knight. But the rules of the world kept her from doing that. After serving Renly, she then made an oath to Catelyn to keep her daughter safe. And ever since, she has held herself to that oath. And she held herself accountable as a knight, even though she would never be worthy of that title. But the truth about Brienne is that she's always been a knight. In the name of the warrior, she was always brave. In the name of the father, she was always just. And in the name of the mother, she always defended the innocent. And now we saw that heartfelt scene where she finally became a knight, fulfilling everything she wanted to be and everything she lived for. She has completed her purpose as a character and her character arc. She is now a strong woman. She is now the first knight of the Seven Kingdoms, who is going to lead her own army to protect the world against the dead. So Brienne will die being everything that she wanted to be. She will be a knight defending the Stark girls from the oath that she swore, and she'll be defending the world from the dead. And naturally, when talking about Brienne, you have to talk about her sidekick, Podrick. And we've seen Podrick grow a lot. He started off as a kid who wasn't really able to do anything right. But as time grew on, we saw Pod develop into a loyal and strong person. As Tyrion's squire, he always had his back, even saving his life and putting his own life in danger. And not only did Pod risk his life for Tyrion, he turned down the ability to be a knight because he refused to testify against Tyrion. He then escaped King's Landing with Brienne, and he learned a lot from her. And much like with Tyrion, he always did things for Brienne to protect her, to encourage her, and to be there for her when she needed him. So over the past 8 seasons, we've learned that Pod is a very clumsy guy, but he's great with women. And he's developed into a very strong leader and a loyal friend. So I think we've seen Pod grow so much, and I think we'll see him protecting somebody that he cares for, that he has done very often in the past. So I believe Pod could die protecting Brienne because of the strong relationship they built. And also in the battle for Winterfell, I think we may lose Grey Worm. We first saw Grey Worm as a slave. He was not allowed to feel or experience anything. He was simply a product and not a person. And because Daenerys rescued him, she gave Grey Worm the freedom to decide who he was going to be. And he chose to bring freedom to others. So over time we saw Grey Worm find himself, find purpose in life, as well as find his love. So the tragedy of Grey Worm is that the freedom that he was given led him to choose what he was enslaved to do, and that's to fight. And I think Grey Worm will die fighting for the living because he realized he has something to live for. And after he goes, we can take pride in knowing that Grey Worm made the decision himself. He chose to fight against the dead, and he died because it was his freedom to fight. But the unfortunate tragedy is that he wouldn't be able to live out the rest of his days with Missandei, like he promised they would do. I think Dolorous Edd will also die at the fight for Winterfell. We saw him fight at Hardhome, and he defended the wall under Jon Snow's leadership as well as Lord Commander to protect the realms of men. And I think in the battle for Winterfell, we'll see that his watch has finally ended, and he's going to die and fight amongst friends. And I think that's a very rare thing and a privilege that he has, considering he was condemned to the wall. And someone else we could see go is Theon. Based on his decision to go back and fight for Winterfell, it seems like he's completing his arc as a character. Because Theon grew up as a Stark, but he didn't realize what he had until he lost it. And for the entirety of Theon, he's been on a journey of self-discovery. Theon first thought that he was defined by his blood, the fact that he was Ironborn, and because of that he betrayed the ones he loved. And he self-induced his own pain, more than most people. And the most Ironborn thing Theon has ever done is to pay the Iron Price. He paid the Iron Price through torture and through betrayal to finally realize that he is also a Stark. So Theon's come full circle and realized that he loved who he was all along. But more than that, he loves his brothers and sisters, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and Jon. So Winterfell is Theon's home, and he will defend it as both a Greyjoy and a Stark. So I think we may see Theon die in his home. I think Davos also has strong potential to die in this season. I don't know if he's going to die at the Battle for Winterfell, but I think he's going to fulfill his role and die along the way. Because Davos has always served people and believed in people strongly to help them achieve their goals and ambition. He followed Stannis into war, and he followed Stannis until he lost his son, and he followed Stannis when he put his faith in a Red Priest, rather than in himself. And because of that, Davos is loyal. He has a good heart. He always puts himself at risk to protect and defend the ones he loves. And this has gotten him in trouble, but his skills are needed in the war to come.
You need someone to rebuild your army for you. Someone to convince this lord and that lord to fight for you, to bring sellswords and pirates to your side.
I've made my decision.
He's right. You need him. He has a part to play in the war to come.
His skills were always important, but they're not important for Stannis, they're important for Jon Snow. And so far he has played the role well. He fought for Jon even after death. He rebuilt the northern armies to get Jon Snow's family home back. He then went with Jon to make peace with the Dragon Queen. And now he still fights for Jon to make sure he gets what he deserves because Davos believes in him. And right now we all know that Jon is Targaryen, and Jon's name could do a lot more for Jon than maybe Davos ever could. So I think sometime Davos will succeed. He will fulfill his role in providing Jon the power that is necessary. And when Davos fulfills that role of ensuring that Jon becomes who he's supposed to be, then he can go. Because Davos has been through enough loss and been through enough battles. And it's time for him to see his son again. And another mentor that I think we could see go is Ser Jorah. Not only is he a strong mentor to Daenerys, but he's her closest friend. And Jorah's journey was really just finding purpose in life, believing in something more than himself. And he found that with Daenerys. And he put himself on the line countless times for Daenerys. And now that he's earned her trust back, it's now time for him to fight for the North and hopefully earn their trust back. So I think Jorah's gonna die making things right with the North, with Westeros, and he will die defending the woman he loves, Daenerys. And I think we could also lose another Mormont. I don't think Lyanna Mormont will make it in the battle for Winterfell. We've seen her call out kings and stood her ground when all the other lords were afraid to. And she's a character who leads by example, as we hear her say that she wants to fight honorably with the North. But the biggest tragedy of Lyanna's character is that she's a child. Sure, she's a strong, independent woman, but she's a kid. And I think we'll see a big tragedy at the Battle for Winterfell, because Lyanna will get overwhelmed, but she'll die fighting honorably for the North. A character that I'm 50-50 on is Tormund. I don't know if Tormund is going to live or die. And his character is very significant because it depends on how the showrunners want him to represent. The first time we met Tormund, he was seen as an enemy. He was a very intimidating wildling, but over time we've seen him become a fun and caring person. He became great friends with Jon even though these people were supposed to be enemies, and he even chose Jon as his leader to lead him into the Long Night. But I think the key trait about Tormund is that he believes in electing his leaders. He wants to follow somebody who he believes in. Mance Rayder wasn't Tormund's leader because he had the right parents. He was Tormund's leader and the wildlings' leader because they believed in him. The reason why Tormund follows Jon is because he believes in him. The show could have Tormund die and have it be very tragic because he's a very fun and lovable character. But I think if they had Tormund live, it would represent so much more. Have Tormund live through the Long Night and live in Westeros. But he lives in Westeros for a very specific reason. After the events of defeating Queen Cersei, leaders will no longer be selected by bloodline. Daenerys' idea of breaking the wheel will be a success story, and maybe a form of election or democracy can be brought to Westeros. And Tormund would have a very interesting story of being someone who grew up over the wall and settled in Westeros because now he can finally vote for a leader that he believes in. And he would be the creation of a new house, representing a new world that they tried to build over the wall. And then moving on to the Brotherhood. Beric has been brought back countless times for a reason, and I think we're going to finally see that reason unfold in this season. The Brotherhood without banners defends the defenseless, and that's been Beric's key role. Maybe he's been brought back so many times just to fight for Winterfell. Or maybe he's been brought back just one more time to defend one more person from one more White Walker. Beric is down to his last life, and I think we're finally going to see his purpose for being kept alive this long. And the same goes for the Hound. The Hound has been told countless times that he is here for a reason, and I think we're going to see that. But the truth to the Hound is that he has a very hard exterior, and he's a feared warrior. But that's just a shell of who he is on the inside. The Hound is a character that was never loved or cared for and never felt belonged to anyone. And throughout the Hound's story arc, we've seen him experience that. Him taking on that caretaker role with Arya led him to do selfless things. He put his life on the line to protect her. And even after Arya, he still went on to do what he thought was right. So I think at the Hound's end, we can see him become loyal and defend somebody that he loves. And maybe it's someone you don't think needs defending. I would love to see the Hound sacrifice himself to save Arya. These characters have had on and off reactions, and it's very clear that the Hound cares for Arya. And what better way to really communicate to Arya how much the Hound cares than to give his life for her. But that being said, I think Arya is going to die too. She grew up as the Lady of Winterfell but wanted to be anything but. And she faced such tragedy as a kid. And because of that, she wanted to target the people who have wronged her as well as disassociate herself from that lady that people saw her as. And that led her to become a faceless man. But Arya was never truly able to become faceless. She couldn't disassociate that part of herself. And we saw her choose her family when she went to Winterfell. And now she's fighting alongside them to help defeat the dead. And Melisandre got it right.
I see a darkness in you. And in that darkness, eyes staring back at me. Brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes. Eyes you'll shut forever. We will meet again.
In a way, we're seeing Arya's blue eyes, green eyes, and brown eyes close, because she's stopping being a faceless person and being Arya Stark. But I think there will come a time where Arya's eyes will shut forever, and she will die defending her home, or she will die helping to defeat Cersei. But either way, she will see Melisandre before that happens. And Melisandre is another character that I know we will see die in this season. She spent so much time trying to push history in the direction that she wanted or she saw, and she was wrong. She put her faith in Stannis, and she sacrificed lives to try and put Stannis on the throne. And she realized that her interpretations were wrong, and she's been humbled. And now she's taken a step back and does things that are necessary to help prepare for the long night. But she's not choosing sides anymore. And Melisandre knows that she will die in Westeros. She tells Varys. But maybe we'll see Melisandre make one more dedicated decision. And this decision has true stakes. And she could really change the course of history. Whether it's giving the kiss of life to someone and bringing someone back to life, sacrificing herself for another, or bringing an army called the Fiery Hand to help defeat Jon and Daenerys' enemies. But regardless of what decision she makes, she will dramatically alter the fates of Daenerys and Jon. Another person that we know is going to die is Varys, and that's because Melisandre told him. And he's a character who went from rags to riches by being the Master of Whispers. And what we know is that Varys has been conspiring to put multiple Targaryens on the throne, and he's manipulated what he can to get the outcomes he desires. And the key thing with Varys is that his actions are not to create chaos. His actions are grounded in the hope to build a better world, and he will stop at nothing to make sure that he accomplishes this.
What is it you want exactly?
Peace. Prosperity. A land where the powerful do not prey on the powerless. And perhaps we've grown so used to horror, we assume there's no other way. The Seven Kingdoms need someone stronger than Tommen, but gentler than Stannis. A monarch who can intimidate the High Lords and inspire the people. A ruler loved by millions with a powerful army and the right family name.
And Varys is a character who I don't see getting killed by a bunch of whites. I see Varys being killed by reverting back to what he was, a spider. He promised Daenerys he would not conspire against her, but when he promised her that, he really believed that Daenerys was the best thing for the realm. But what happens if another candidate comes along that has been raised by the honorable Ned Stark? That's the son of the beloved Rhaegar Targaryen, and someone that shares his views and is counseling the person that he supports. Maybe Varys will switch allegiances and choose another worthy ruler. And I think Varys will spin his last web in hopes to get Jon Snow on the throne. Because he wants to build a better world that is better than the shit one that he's always known.
She gave Tarly a choice. A man who had taken up arms against her. What else could she do?
Not burn him alive alongside his son?
I am her hand, not her head. I can't make her decisions for her.
That's what I used to tell myself about her father. I found the traitors, but I wasn't the one burning them alive.
I have 3 large dragons. I'm going to fly them to the Red Keep.
We've discussed this.
My enemies are in the Red Keep.
You need to find a way to make her listen.
Daenerys is not her father.
And she never will be. With the right counsel.
The people who follow you know that you made something impossible happen. Maybe that helps them believe that you can make other impossible things happen. Build a world that's different from the shit one they've always known. But if you use them to melt castles and burn cities, you're not different. You're just more of the same.
One key character that we could see go is Bran Stark. He's one of the most powerful characters in the show because he represents memory and magic. And maybe Bran's ability came less from him being Brandon Stark and more from him being a brother. But either way, Bran's gift came during a crucial point in history. And he's ready, but the one issue is that he had to shed himself to become everything. And the thing with Bran is that he could help to fulfill his purpose by spreading truth and fighting the dead. But the question is does this new world that's going to be built need his abilities? Maybe Bran will die, and he won't be around when a new dawn comes. Because Bran will not walk, he will fly. Have we seen him fly already in a crow? Will we see him fly as a dragon, or will we see him leave his body and embody another? Either way, I think if Bran lives, we'll see him finish his arc under the God's Eye, and be the world's memory, history, as well as the god under the tree in the God's Eye. Or we could see him die along the way and leave a world with a new ruler with a broken wheel, but no more magic, and Bran would die along with the dragons and the Night King. But the 2 key Lannisters I think we're going to see leave are Jaime and Cersei. And we've seen Jaime learn a lot throughout the show, and he's made many amends for his past actions. But Jaime was never defined by his poor choices. He was defined by his heroic actions. The difference is, every honorable choice Jaime made never gained positive recognition, only notoriety. Jaime saved King's Landing and he became Kingslayer. But I think this time Jaime will die doing something honorable. But this time he won't be the Kingslayer. He will be remembered, appreciated, and loved for his actions. And I think that's because Jaime is the Valonqar.
So Jaime Lannister. Someone forgot to write down all your great deeds.
There's still time.
Is there? For a 40-year-old knight with one hand?
And the Valonqar prophecy stems from Maggie and the Frog. Maggie gave a prophecy to Cersei when she was a child. First of all, she said Cersei would be replaced by a more beautiful queen. Secondly, she said gold would be their crowns and gold their shrouds, representing Cersei's 3 children and how they would all die. And thirdly, she mentions Valonqar, which means little brother that will choke the life out of her. And because of this prophecy, Cersei has been doing everything to maintain her power. She's been afraid and fearful that another queen is going to take her place. But the irony about Cersei is every decision she's made to hold her power has ultimately hurt her in the long run. And I think Cersei will be in a place where there's not much left than the pleasure in seeing her enemies in pain. And she won't want to see Daenerys sit the throne. And we heard Qyburn say in episode 1 that Cersei has a very special plan for Daenerys. And we know that Cersei's plans for revenge have poetic justice tied to them. Maybe she wants to push Daenerys to the point where she becomes desperate and she rides Drogon into the Red Keep, really showing that this amazing Queen Daenerys is just like her father. And maybe at that point, Cersei may use wildfire. The poetic justice is it looks like Daenerys burned them all, just like her father wanted to do. But I think Jaime will be there to stop Cersei. But maybe it's at the wrong time, and I think Jaime will die while he kills Cersei. So I think these 2 characters came into the world together, and they'll also exit the world together. And then we have our 2 main characters, Daenerys and Jon. And I think one of these characters will survive and the other one will die. Both have gotten a lot of support in the areas where they grew to power, and they've done it by fighting for the little guy, and proving that they're honorable rulers. And both of these characters are Targaryens and are prophesized saviors to help defeat the Night King. In my personal opinion, I think Daenerys will die. I think since season 1, her arc has been the Conqueror. Her mission has been the Seven Kingdoms. She birthed her weapon, the dragons, and used them to amass an army. Sure, she helped the weak along the way. She saved the slaves. But she fought to get that army. She fought to get the Dothraki. And she laid her claim to Essos and wants to lay her claim to Westeros because it's her birthright. And her whole idea on getting the throne undermines her want to break the wheel. Breaking the wheel means breaking the wealthy families that crush on the poor. And her whole claim to being queen is based on her bloodline, which undermines what she wants to do. That's why I think Jon will be the one to live, because his role is to build a better world after the Night King and Cersei have been defeated. Jon has always been the bridge between two sides, bringing people together. And Jon never asked to be a leader or fought to be a leader, he was always elected. The Wildlings chose Jon. The Night's Watch chose Jon. The Northerners chose Jon. And I think over time, more and more people will choose Jon. And I think that links with Melisandre's visions, because whoever is Azor Ahai to help defeat the Night King will be king. But there's some sacrifices that they would have to make along the way.
This war has just begun. It will last for years. Thousands will die at your command. You will betray the man serving you. You will betray your family. You will betray everything you once held dear. And it will all be worth it. Because you are the son of fire. You are the warrior of light. You will sweep aside this pretender and that one. You will be king. Stannis does not need to beg this lord or that lord for support. The Lord of Light stands behind him.
And how many ships has the Lord of Light got in his fleet?
He has no need for ships.
I'm sure he doesn't. But we do if we're going to war.
This war of 5 kings means nothing. The true war lies to the north, my king. Death marches on the wall. Only you can stop him.
And finally, one of the characters that I think could die is the Night King. But it's 50-50 depending on what story they want to tell. The reason we could be watching this series unfold is because it's the time they defeat the Night King. But I'm equally not so sure. In order to understand how to defeat the Night King, you need to look at the past. And I can't wrap my head around how the Children of the Forest, the First Men, and Azor Ahai managed to push the Night King back. I feel like there's a lot of information that could allude to the Night King wanting a sacrifice, wanting the prince that was promised to him. And if you want to know more about that, check out my video on how to defeat the Night King. But that's it everyone on this downer video. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you agree with who I chose would die? And who do you think will die in this season? But that's it everybody, see you next time. Take care, bye.